We dive into the Ravens Week 18 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers with a very special guest next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as we've returned here with another episode of Locked On Ravens, I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, and back with us today here on the final Purple Friday of the 2021 regular season for the Baltimore Ravens is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, Qadry Ismail. And Q, the Ravens, unfortunately, on this 5-game losing streak, practically unheard of in the John Harbaugh era for an organization that has gone through, this year, so many injuries, a COVID outbreak. But they end up falling to the Rams 20-19 and now still have playoff hopes, but they will need quite a lot of help to get there. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing wonderful. I'm still in somewhat of a position of shock, seeing as though the Ravens have lost a weird 5 straight, something that just I would have never kind of put together with the John Harbaugh-led football team. But here we are. They're in a position of on the outside looking in with needing a ton of help, and they need to desperately get a win to secure at least a chance to be considered in the playoffs against their rival in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, this should be a very good game in Week 18. Both teams have something to play for now that their playoff chances do rely on a bunch of other help, including the one and only Jacksonville Jaguars, who Jihad Ward, Joe Cullen, Zach Gore, if you're listening, the Ravens need you. They need you now. So hopefully they can come through. But first, the Ravens have to take care of their own business in Week 18 against Pittsburgh, and we'll get into that in the second and third segments. But Q, I want to first talk with you about this Rams game, a game that it seemed like the Ravens had. The defense was playing well. The offense got into the red zone a couple times, but just could not punch the football in. Tyler Huntley was the quarterback as Lamar Jackson missed yet another game. And I wanted to start with your thoughts on his performance. Now, it was kind of in the middle for me. He ended up finishing 20-32, 197 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. But for you, Q, was this one of his better performances, one of his worst ones, or kind of right in the middle?
So every week you're going to be presented with some level of challenge. I thought the challenge for him was what they were going to do with the defensive front and how to manage the game because you have such a strong defense compared to, your offensive line. The one thing I will say, he certainly kept them competitive, but there were times where I thought he needs to get rid of the ball or he needs to run with the football. Case in point, later in the game, he was rolling out and escaped the pressure out of the pocket. Well, he sees Hollywood Brown in the flat, and as opposed to gathering his feet and just making an easy throw out there, he forced the throw and then forced him to throw. He winds up throwing the ball in the dirt. That you cannot have in that situation. But then as I looked at the replay, I'm like, boy, he could have just run with that thing and still been running, potentially would have scored. So I think the game management is okay. It wasn't great this game, but when it came down to it, they still had a chance to win the game. They didn't get it done in the red zone, in the most crucial of moments, late in the game. They could have sealed the game. Instead, they just couldn't get it done. And so I think that's where you take your hat off to the Rams for having enough talent to figure out a way to win the game. But as for Tyler Huntley, another learning experience, another tight game against a good opponent that he can, look at and put onto his resume when it comes time for him to make his decision in the offseason.
Yeah, and it's so deflating for an offense to get into the red zone. The Ravens are at first and goal at the 5. They get down to the 2, and you're thinking, well, look, if they score a touchdown here, this game is over. And they just cannot punch in the football. They have to settle, and the Rams end up going on the field scoring. And so that's one of the key things where, yes, Huntley has shown flashes, but there are other reasons, many reasons why Lamar Jackson is still the starter of this football team. Both are great players, But I think that, the Ravens missed Lamar Jackson in a situation like that in the clutch, first and goal, and trying to punch the ball into the end zone there. But Tyler Huntley didn't have one of his pass catchers in James Prochet, who no injury relation. He was just a healthy and active. Now, the Ravens have invested quite a bit at the wide receiver position over the last couple of years. 2 receivers in the 2019 draft, 2 in 2022 and 2021. Plus, they have a guy named Sammy Watkins there as well. And over the past 8-10 years, however long, recently the Ravens wide receiver room has been regarded as a weakness, especially in the Lamar Jackson era. Now, this year, it has been quite the opposite, with the team now seemingly having too many pass catchers, as Prochet is a very talented player, but if you're activating 6 receivers or even 7, you have to deactivate a crucial offensive lineman or a defensive back or somebody else. So, Hugh, what were your whole thoughts on the James Prochet situation? Because I know it did cause a bit of uproar in the Ravens community.
Yeah, I think anytime you push a guy to the side that has talent and you feel can win the game or contribute to your team's chances of winning the game, you want him in there. So it was a little bit concerning that I had such a good game and then I'm inactive. Sometimes we don't get a chance to see the week of practice, the week of preparation. And that's where, I know James, something must have either gone on. Maybe he didn't have a good week of practice. Maybe it was a case where, they just thought the matchups of what they were going to do, special teams, they could replace him and put somebody else in there. But the bottom line was, he wasn't in there, and the explanation was given was just a generic explanation. Well, we just needed some different bodies, so we're just gonna go ahead and inactivate him. But if I was him, I'd be concerned. I mean, I thought from a playing standpoint, my play is speaking for itself, and so far so good. Not making mistakes. I'm getting my routes. I'm getting my depth. I'm being available. I'm catching it when I'm catching it, in the whole 9. So this year, from an injury standpoint, from a COVID standpoint, it certainly has changed things. And I know that the coaches are probably given that level of explanation, just saying, look, hey, we wanted you out there, but we just couldn't because of all the things that had gone on and taken place when it came to, setting the roster for Sunday.
Right, and that's where, and Hugh, I've talked about this for a pretty long time. I was so of the notion that the Ravens were not going to take 2 receivers in the 2021 draft for this exact reason, because they had invested so much in the position. And I'm not saying Tylan Wallace was the wrong pick. I think he was, for where they got him, a steal, and he has shown that he has a ton of potential and is a great special teams contributor. But if the Ravens had taken 2, which they did, they were going to run into a situation like this, where I was even shocked they kept 7 receivers on the roster with Miles Boykin. I thought that they were going to use that spot for an extra lineman, extra defensive back. But here we are now, where James Prochet deserves opportunities. He absolutely does, and he's proven it. But where are they coming from? Are you taking away Marquise Brown snaps? Are you taking away Rashad Bateman, Sammy Watkins? A lot of people have said, well, Sammy Watkins hasn't done this. Sammy Watkins has caught a couple of really clutch passes for the Ravens, and he's contributed. But now it's a point of, all right, if James Prochet continues to get this treatment heading into next season,
right,
is he really in the plans, or is this just like, all right, with you as a depth piece, you can come in and contribute? I think he deserves a real shot. So we'll see how that ends up turning out for the team. But there is no question they have a talented plethora of wide receivers at that position now, at least heading into 2022. But Q, the defense in this Rams game, I thought stepped up in a big way. Holding Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp to 20 points, I think is a very impressive feat. And it came on a ton of great performances by many key defensive players. So, Hugh, who were some of the players that stood out to you on the defensive side of the ball? I know there are a couple for me, but really, all 3 levels, you could argue there were really big standouts.
Yeah, no, they did well. This Rams defense, this Rams offense, it has some bullets, some horses, some dudes that can make big plays. I just think, Chuck Clark, whatever he had for breakfast, it worked. Eat it again. Do your same routine over and over again. The pick 6 was just classic, right place, right time, because you studied, what to expect. then at the same time, when it came to the second pick, I mean, that was just, well, I will say this. That was Matthew Stafford going back to his days in Detroit. Cooper Kupp was wide open, and he was coming in on a deep over route. I don't know why he threw it to Odell Beckham. I mean, because when I was watching, I was like, oh, my God, we got a busted coverage here. Oh, it's an interception. Ooh, they dodged the bullet. But they did come back to that deep over route and isolate guys with Cooper Kupp a few times, and it made, for a long day. So Chuck Clark, for me, is the guy that just popped on the field on Sunday.
Yeah, I was very impressed. And after all those dropped interceptions that he had over the course of this season, to finally see him get his hands on not one, but two, it was a great thing to see. I also thought Tony Jefferson played really well. He's played great football since coming back to Baltimore, and a couple of other guys as well. But as a unit, as a collective, the defense really did step up for a team that is missing Marcus Peters badly and Marlon Humphrey badly, Deshaun Elliott and a bunch of others as well. I mean, this is the number one rush defense in the entire NFL, and they haven't had Derek Wolfe for the entire season. So it's players like that who are missed, but others who are stepping up that really make this collective defense really impressive to me, even though I know the pass defense has been not amazing this year with all the injuries they've had. I mean, what they've put together, you can't help but tip your hat to what they've done. But we'll head into our first break. When we get back, we'll be previewing the Ravens Week 18 matchup with the Steelers and getting into some Lamar Jackson talk as well. So stay tuned for that, and we will be right back. It's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easy to stick to your resolution. If you want to eat healthy, but it just gets boring, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and most contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. And there are so many flavors to choose from. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Hey Ravens fans, this is Kevin Oestreicher with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about and get Upside. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use promo code TOUCHDOWN and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill-up. That's up to 50 cents a gallon cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or any gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. That's code TOUCHDOWN. We return here. It's our second segment of this Purple Friday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher is still here with Qadry Ismail. In Q, the Ravens, they have been a banged-up team all year. They now head into Week 18 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's seeming less and less likely that Lamar Jackson will be on the field for that final game, as he did not practice on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday, and, with each practice he misses, it just seems that the next time we'll see him in a regular season game could be September of 2022, and that's super, super unfortunate because, this is a what have you done for me now lately league, where your last performance or some of your latest performances are what are fresh in people's minds. And after a hot start to the season in 2021, he had that Miami game, and it kind of went downhill from there. He admittedly struggled very badly over that last month before he got injured, and that is called for Tyler Huntley this, and Lamar Jackson traded that, and Lamar Jackson's not the guy. And look, for me, there is no quarterback controversy. Players are allowed to struggle. People see that MVP season in 2019 and say, oh, why doesn't he play like that all the time? And I'm like, well, it's just not possible for any player to do that. Jackson is extremely talented. I think he is the right guy for this offense, especially moving forward, but Q with a contract situation coming up where his fifth-year option will be next season, then after that is free agency. Where are you in this whole Lamar Jackson conversation? There is a lot to dive into with it, a lot of different moving pieces, but what are your overall thoughts on Jackson as he heads into this 2022 offseason, assuming he does not play in Week 18 and the Ravens don't make the playoffs?
Yeah, so for the Week 18 game, I'm not saying that he shouldn't play, but if you're not 100% and you're in this mode of, trying to protect yourself and give yourself the best leverage as far as contract wise, I would probably sit down and call it a day. When it comes to the contract, there have been reports that I've heard that he's gotten a significant life-changing option for himself, but he and his people decided not to pursue it. So, okay, no problem. I mean, you have that right to leverage yourself, but I think he's losing some leverage. I don't think his star is as bright because of the 5 in a row losing streak. The fact that they're on the outside looking in from a playoff standpoint, what gives you leverage as a quarterback is that you win ball games and you're relevant in the conversation when it comes to making the playoffs. Are you a team that is, putting your team in position to win games, or are you a player, at the quarterback position to put your team in position to win games? So, Kevin, I think, is Lamar Jackson their guy? I believe he is. I believe their philosophy is catered to him. But it'll be interesting because business, especially off-season business, off-season money, it changes people. And at the same time, I think with Eric DaCosta, he has to really, really consider. Like I was explaining to fans on Twitter, I was like, look, the biggest need they need to concern themselves with is offensive and defensive line. Like Joe Burrow needs to get his butt on the ground, and nobody has been able to do that with a Ravens jersey. At the same time, you also look at, offensively, you have a strong offensive line, you're going to run the ball. You can't be having Hendrickson having career days against you and your quarterback. You can't have TJ Watt getting Defensive Player of the Year accolades because of your offensive line really struggling. Those two dudes aren't going anywhere in our division. So offense and defensive line, to me, is priority number one. Don't worry about all the receivers because you got enough already. Free agency, maybe poke around. I don't think Sammy Watkins is coming back. If he does, so be it. But I think that would even be at like a lesser deal. Miles Boykin, I'm kind of surprised that just kind of fizzled and he's an afterthought. But yeah, this offseason is going to be real challenging. But week 18, I just don't see Lamar Jackson playing. And I think that is not because of a money grab, but money leverage for him.
Q, 99% of the time, quarterback is the most important position, but that does not mean that other positions are not important. And so what the Ravens are going to run into when giving a life-changing contract to Lamar Jackson, which I think they should, and I think Lamar Jackson deserves that, is they're going to have to start. They've already started. They've had to start letting guys go. I mean, at one point, this team had Terrell Suggs, Zadarius Smith, and Matthew Judon all on the same team rushing the quarterback. We've seen Zadarius Smith leave and become one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Matthew Judon leave and become one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. So it's guys who you got to prioritize and then guys who you're not prioritizing. And when giving a huge contract to any player, even Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey, it's going to limit your options elsewhere at other positions, like the offensive line, like the defensive line. The Ravens have 10 draft picks in 2022. I would not be shocked if they used all 10 in the 2022 draft because they now have to look at Anthony Averett and Deshaun Elliott and Bradley Bozeman and all these other guys who you would like to have back, but can you afford it knowing that a Lamar Jackson extension is coming down the line here? Mm-hmm. And so I think that Lamar Jackson is the player for the Ravens. He is the franchise quarterback. He is the guy that, the Ravens live and die by, and I think that's how it should be. But it's going to be interesting to see how this contract situation plays out, especially because both parties have been so open about, look, we want this partnership to continue. It seems like the writing is on the wall that it will, but I'm interested to see the money figure that ends up coming with it. But at the end of the day, Lamar is the guy for the Baltimore Ravens. But Q, as you talked about in week 18, it very likely could not be Lamar Jackson. Could be Tyler Huntley once again. But the Steelers, their run defense is bottom 3 in the NFL. Now, the Ravens' run offense has not been good in its own right this season. You can look at the stats and everything and the high number of carries, the yards, whatnot. But for you and IQ and many others who watch this team, I think we understand that this team is missing J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards very badly. Big time. And looking ahead to 2022, as I know some people are, those are two guys who I know many are expecting to come on very strong next year. But for now, it's still the Latavius Murray show, the Devonta Freeman show, and that has not given the Ravens the best returns. But against the bottom three rush defense, Q, are you running the ball a lot, or are you still relying on the arm of whether it is Jackson or Tyler Huntley in those pass catchers such as Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, and others also?
I mean, I think you got to run the ball. You know, you're a running team. That's what you're built on. But I also believe that the bigger picture is how effective are you in converting third downs and staying on the field, whether it be through the air or on the ground. If you can sustain drives, I think that's what wears down that Pittsburgh Steelers defense, not necessarily just, an occasional big run, and then all of a sudden you're sitting down on the sideline and Sam Cook's out there punting the ball. No, you gotta sustain a drive. You gotta have no penalties. You gotta, be that dude when it comes to running the ball. Yeah, what is it? 33-yard was the big carry of the running game last week. Well, all right, let's see it again. Come on now. And those that have been watching our podcast recognize that my tongue-in-cheek comment just now was like, every time you get a 10-yard exciting run, you're like, oh my God, this is okay. He does it. Both Latavius Murray, Devonta Freeman, they all give you that burst of slow. And I mean, Freeman looks so just dynamic, and then somebody got him by the leg. Okay, I mean, he looks so okay. So with that said, yeah. I just think it's about sustaining drives. If you sustain drives, the passing game is going to take care of itself because they're going to have to stack people in the box. If Joe Hayden is not there, I think that helps, and that's an advantage because you're not going to have to worry necessarily about a lockdown corner. Although it is the Steelers, it is a rival game, and anything can happen.
Yeah, with this game in particular, you throw out the records, you throw out everything that's happened throughout the season. It's going to be tough. It's going to be close. And with both teams still having stuff to play for, I mean, physical is, an understatement because these teams will be going all out. And I think running the football, as you mentioned, Hugh, the Ravens have predicated themselves on doing it. They don't have the personnel they've had in recent seasons, but that doesn't mean it all just goes away. And Devonta Freeman has shown you the burst. He's also shown you some bursts that should have been or could have been but weren't there, and it's been, I know, frustrating for a lot of people. But,
I miss Gus Edwards.
Latavius Murray has been somebody who, can get you 2 yards on a 3rd and 1, but doesn't really get you much outside of that. Has shown a couple of big plays this year. Le'Veon Bell, well, we know he's in Tampa right now and not even with the Ravens anymore. And Tyson Williams, that experiment seemed to be thrown out long ago, and it seems like they're kind of over it. So, it's the Devonta Freeman show right now, alongside a mix of some Tyler Huntley carries in there. But, for a team that does predicate themselves in the run game, I'd expect them to run it. But also, hopefully, that run game can feed their pass game and give some nice play action looks for Mark Andrews and others, and that will help them out a lot. But we'll head into our final break. When we get back, we'll take a trip down memory lane with the Steelers team and also talk about some final score predictions. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back. BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue on march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. It's a new year, and there's a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait, take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. We return with our final segment of this Purple Friday edition, the last one of the 2021 regular season. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Qadry Ismail. And Hugh, this game means a little bit more, I think, because it seems that it's going to be the last one for Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. Now, I know a lot of Ravens fans will not miss Ben Roethlisberger if indeed that is a fact. He's been a player who has been a thorn in the Ravens' side for years and years and years. And I think this Ravens team would love nothing more than to send him out of M&T Bank Stadium with a loss in what seemingly is his final game. But Q, I wanted to ask you, as we kind of take a trip down memory lane here, for your memories with Ben Roethlisberger and this Ravens and Steelers rivalry, because there have been so many, amazing highs and devastating lows during this time with Roethlisberger as a member of the Steelers. You could look to the Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger days in the Christmas game and all this crazy stuff that Ben Roethlisberger has been a part of. But what are your memories, your fondest ones, you're the ones you have locked away, never want to think of again with Ben Roethlisberger as a member of the Steelers team against the Ravens?
Yeah, when they were with him and Antonio Brown and they were at their peak, he would just, with surgical precision, I don't care who was guarding him, Antonio Brown was getting open. And Ben was, in his physical prime to just – somebody comes in and tries to tackle him, he's just, holding himself up or pushing the guy off. And, he's slinging it out to Antonio Brown, and they're just constantly winning. And it's like, son of a gun, what is going on? Why can't you get them down? Or it was to get into the playoffs, but the Ravens get knocked out. Why? Because they drive down the field, and then all of a sudden he slices it to Antonio, and then he leans over, I think it was 3 different guys. I know for sure it was C.J. Mosley and Eric Weddle, but I don't recall the third guy, whoever the corner was over there. Might have been Jimmy Smith, but I'm not certain. But all I know is that when I look at Ben Roethlisberger's play, it just you just get so nervous. Oh my God. Can we just win this game? Oh, please. You just, you'd be on hands and knees just praying that, you would get them and knock them down. But then there was also the Bart Scott hit on him. Obviously, Haloti Ngata breaking his nose, and Terrell Sugg owning his ass, and God still having his soul. So I don't know. I loved the competitive fire that was brought out by both teams in the Ben Roethlisberger era. He was remarkable.
He really was. And, all those different plays where it's almost, Ben Roethlisberger, Lamar Jackson, very different players, but in this sense, it's like you do everything right. You're at Ben Roethlisberger, you have an opportunity to bring him down, and he makes something out of nothing by, you mentioned, just pushing a guy off or running around and making something happen. And for what this team, went through with trying to get him down week in and week out, there's that one incompletion that keeps coming back to my mind where Terrell Suggs is right there. He has him wrapped up. He's kind of pawing at the ball. Roethlisberger refuses to go down and kind of flips it, a sidearm flip out of bounds. And it's just like that encapsulates it all because, Suggs is on him, Ngata's on him, Scott, everybody gets to him, and sometimes they'll get him down. Other times, Ben Roethlisberger would make magic happen. And so, obviously, he's not the player that he once was, and it's part of the reason, in fact, probably much of the reason why this is probably his final game with the Pittsburgh Steelers and in the NFL. But, he can still make some stuff happen, and the Steelers' offense has kind of changed around him to be more of a quick-hitting pass offense where you got the slants to Deontay Johnson, who was on the COVID list now, actually, but it's the same type
stay on
of
that
thing.
COVID list.
Right. The Ravens, for what he has done to them, there have been all the devastating lows, but also the many great highs. And, with the killer bees there, with Ben, Brown, and Bell, those were years of, all right, these are tough matchups. And even when those guys departed and now the passing of the torch, whether it's to Mason Rudolph or a veteran or a rookie, the rivalry won't be the same, but it'll still stay, I think, a very good and physical and amazing rivalry through it all. But Q, this game does have meaning for both teams. I don't think either's going to lie down. The Steelers want to win this one for Ben. The Ravens want the Steelers to lose this one because of Ben. And even if the Ravens win, that does not punch their ticket. As we talked about earlier in the show, they still need the Jaguars to beat the Colts and a couple other things to happen as well. How do you see this game going? Because, we talked about 5 straight losses being almost unheard of in the John Harbaugh era. Well, 6 would just be absolutely unheard of. Do you think that this is their 6th straight loss, or do you think that at the end of this 2021 regular season, Baltimore will end it with a win against their biggest division rival?
I don't even know where to go with it, because my fandom is saying that they got what it takes to beat this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Um, the history of the rivalry is the fact that it's been such close contests between both squads. I mean, both squads have been stacked over the years, yet both squads, you throw the records out the window, and it's intense. It's like, hey, let's get after it. But the unique circumstances with the injuries, the unique circumstances surrounding whether or not it's going to be Lamar, is it not going to be Lamar? What's going on? I think those are the things that cause me to have pause. I don't know what direction to go in, because of the just uncertainty that we've seen over the last few weeks. Like this is all new territory. So with that said, if I had to give a prediction, which sucks the last couple of weeks, because I've even had to say, hey, I don't think the Ravens are going to win against, like, say, the Packers. I didn't think the score was going to be that close, but it was. Obviously, I didn't think they were going to win against the Bengals. Sadly, I was hoping and praying that they would. But, I think that just because I'm a Ravens guy, and, I'm not saying it from a homer standpoint, but I think on paper they've been in close, tight games against some really good opponents. I don't see why they can't end their season on a high and send Ben Roethlisberger into retirement with the L.
Yeah, what a perfect storybook ending for Ravens fans, for the Ravens organization. That would be it. And I'm with you, Q. I had the Ravens winning this game before the season, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it. You did mention the unpredictability, the injuries, the COVID stuff, everything. The Ravens placing Patrick Ricard on the COVID list and Nick Boyle, and they'll actually place Ricard on IR, so his season's done regardless. But, for what the Ravens have gone through this season, for the close games you mentioned they have been in, for the magic they have had, and it suddenly fizzled out here obviously over the past 5 weeks. One prediction I can make that I'm pretty confident in is this going to be a close game. It's going to be a physical game, and this is probably, I'm going to say, a 3-point Ravens win on the leg of Justin Tucker. If it comes down to a kicker difference between Justin Tucker and Chris Boswell, I'm taking Justin Tucker 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
And he's a player that can literally shift the momentum of a game, of a season, and whatnot. And so if it does come down to it, if the Ravens don't have their star quarterback in Lamar Jackson, they still have their star kicker. And I'm saying it's going to be Justin Tucker at the end to send Ben Roethlisberger into retirement with a loss, kind of a storybook type ending there for sure. But hey, this Ravens team has pulled off the impossible this season. It's been such a crazy, wacky season, so why not make it a bit wackier with a storybook ending for the Ravens there at the end of that game? But Q, that's all I have for you here today. Thank you so much for joining me here on this show. And I know that these past 5 weeks have been losses for this Ravens team, but it's always a pleasure and an honor to talk to you each and every week.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Definitely know that I've learned an awful lot from you as well, and just your perspective. Always just bringing some really good insight and knowledge and different ways to kind of examine the game. And I still don't really agree with the Devontae Freeman baller, but hey, can't always agree on everything. However, though, I am definitely appreciative to talk some Ravens and talk shop with you, and just had a lot of fun this season. And hopefully this offseason will show that the Ravens can kind of retool, refocus, and we'll get back on this podcast and do it again next year.
Yeah, absolutely. This team, I think they're coming back with a vengeance in 2022. I know people are saying, oh, the Ravens are washed up, and you look at the injury list, the injured reserve list, the COVID outbreak, they're getting some guys back. They'll retool, and even if this is the end of their 2021 season, if they don't get the help they need, and even if they don't win the game they need to, it was a magical but crazy season at the end of the day. But thanks so much, Q. And that's all we have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. We're going to take a 2-day break. We'll make it back here on Monday. We'll be diving into the Ravens' last regular season game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you on Monday.